Salah Negm joins me now. He is the Director of News for Al Jazeera English. And Salah, can I just begin by saying first that I am very sorry for your loss and that we here at CNN really do stand in solidarity with you and your journalists at this time. This was the targeted killing of, I believe, 5 of your staff, including one of the most prominent journalists and voices during the duration of this war, Al-Sharif. Can I begin by just asking you for your reaction to what has happened?
First, thank you very much. And I think this is time that journalists everywhere in the world stand beside each other to defend collecting the truth from the field and protecting themselves against the tyranny and crimes that's committed against them. The reaction is journalists in Gaza are journalists. They have been working for 2 years under very difficult circumstances, risking their lives in order for one thing to happen, is to bring the truth about what's happening in Gaza to the outside world. And our correspondent died doing this after a threat from the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu yesterday in the evening, few hours before they were killed. A threat, and at the same time when he was asked why don't you let international journalists to go into Gaza, he promised to secure them. And this is how he secured journalists, killing 5 of them.
And the IDF have come out with this claim that Anas served as the head of a terrorist cell in Hamas. I mean, it's an accusation of Hamas membership that you have heard throughout the duration of the war. What is your response to that?
It's not we only have heard that accusation. Anything for this Israeli government, which doesn't go along with its desires and narratives and what it plans to Gaza or other places, is Hamas member. This is the easiest accusation that happens. This is a government that is lying and lying and lying, and its lies are proved by so many organizations, eyewitnesses, countries throughout this war.
Anas and your other Al Jazeera journalists had moved, we know, to write their own obituaries before they were killed, which suggests they knew what was coming. Can you tell us what you know of the events of the past week and where the crew were at the time of the strike?
The crew was in the vicinity of Al-Shifa Hospital in Gaza. This is a location that a lot of journalists go and start giving live interviews with their channels or collect information from. It's very well known, and they were not hiding. They're known to be there. Yes, every journalist in Gaza is writing his own obituary, because if you are in Gaza, you are not safe anywhere, whether you are a journalist or a normal citizen. 60,000 people died. Every morning you have something like between 50 and 100 people killed by Israel bullets or drones or whatever. So yes, they live in danger all the time.
Yeah. Salah, Israel have known where your journalists have been for the past 2 years. Can you speak to us about the timing of this and why you think this happened now?
The timing of this attack was clear from the Israeli Prime Minister press conferences yesterday. He announced his plans for Gaza. He wants to go and level the city and transfer something like 1 million of its inhabitants to concentration camp in the south, and maybe will accept voluntarily what he calls volunteer evacuation, and in fact it's expelling all of them. That is the plan for Gaza. Now, do they need eyewitnesses? Do they need cameras to monitor that and give the world? In the same press conference yesterday, he denied that there was hunger, shortage of food, but not starvation, which is a lie, as we all know. They suspect the numbers of 60,000 people dead, although it's verified by everyone. So it's killing the messenger and trying to eliminate any eyewitness to atrocities.
Yes, and we know what a lot of your journalists have been doing, and us in particular, is bearing witness to the starvation that has been happening in the enclave. The Committee to Protect Journalists last month said it was gravely worried for Al-Sharif's safety. How concerned are you for your remaining staff there now? And are you taking any precautions? Is it even possible?
There are protocols to secure journalists internationally, like protective gears, trackers, knowing their whereabouts, the way they use the communications, and all of that. But at the same time, if they are reporting from a besieged place with very little movement they can do, and they are confronted by a complete modern army that's bombing that place every day, there is no place safe. So we pray for God every day for their safety, as well as the other people in Gaza, children, women, and men who are under fire for 2 years now.
Yeah, and as I said at the top, we stand in solidarity with our eyes and ears on the ground there in Gaza. Salah Negum, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you very much.
The Foreign Press Association says it's outraged by the targeted killings of journalists in Gaza. Let's bring in Ian Williams, the president of the association. Ian, welcome to the program. As we've noted, we've seen repeated calls for Western journalists to be allowed into Gaza as the war approaches its 2-year mark. Just talk about, tell our viewers why that is so important to have Western journalists there to observe what is going on the ground throughout the war, and what the reaction has been and the justification when you reach out to the Israeli government demanding as much.
Well, one of the points is we should trust Palestinian journalists as well, but there's, profound sort of racism, and the Israeli government has basically said if you're Palestinian, you're not to be trusted. Whereas I think the foreign press, the press in general, are now beginning to learn that whatever the Israeli government says has to be taken with a hundredweight of salt, because there's, what they say bears no relation to reality. And they use keywords like, the Hamas Ministry of Defense. Hamas controls the place. The Ministry of Health. Hamas controls the place. Journalists there, frankly, I don't care whether Asharif was in Hamas or not. We don't kill journalists for being Republicans or Democrats, or in Britain, Labour Party. Hamas is a political organization as well as a terrorist organization, perhaps. But it's not permissible to go killing people. And this was the distinct change now, is the IDF actually boasted that this was a targeted killing. And the reason they're doing that is they're not letting foreign journalists in. So Palestinian journalists are the only ones who are there, the only ones who can tell what's happening there. And what they're saying completely contradicts what's coming from Israeli spokesmen in Israel and across the world. It's quite clear they've documented the ongoing massacres, and the Israelis don't like it.
What do you mean by not caring whether Anas al-Sharif was part of Hamas? Because the Israelis have produced what they say is evidence and have longstanding statements where they say he was not only part of Hamas, but he was leading a Hamas cell. In your view, that doesn't make him fair game for Israeli targets?
Well, first of all, I don't believe it. He's been working 24 hours on journalism. He doesn't have time to work in a cell on the side. The second point is I basically don't believe anything the Israeli government says about this. They've lied and lied and lied. They buried a whole medical team after denying it. They went and destroyed the evidence. They bombed hospitals, claiming there were Hamas facilities underneath, which weren't there. And the only way to conclusively disprove them was to let foreign journalists in. And they won't do that. So now they're basically saying, if foreign journalists are allowed in now, I would make sure they compose their wills before they go.
These are two separate.
The IDF has no compunction.
These are two separate issues you raise. I think the majority of journalists around the world, and I would imagine a lot of our viewers, would support allowing Western journalists into Gaza to see for themselves and report for themselves what is happening in this war. But when you say you don't believe a word Israel is saying, there's been a lot of accusation thrown at Israel for not producing evidence to confirm some of the claims they've made. If they then produce evidence and you say, I don't believe it, where does that leave things?
Well, it leaves things. We work on the balance of proof. Our job is to challenge authority. The authority here is denying access to independent witnesses. Nobody else is allowed to go into Gaza. International organizations aren't allowed into Gaza. Journalists aren't allowed into Gaza. Reuters, AP, CNN, BBC are not allowed into Gaza. Now, what does that give a sort of more than a little hint that things are going on there that the Israeli government doesn't want you to know about or doesn't want you to witness? What other conclusion are you going to give? Now, there's a presumption in favor of Israel in a lot of this, which is totally unjustified after recent experience. I think, and they've targeted journalists before in the West Bank as well, by the way. We're looking at Gaza, but journalists have been assaulted and killed in the West Bank as well for witnessing what the settlers are doing, let alone what the IDF is doing. So I think we're really, you know, it doesn't do Israel any great favors for basically making everything they say totally questionable.
All right, Ian Williams, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you so much for the time, President of the Foreign Press Association. We appreciate it.